3 spine-chilling true accounts of sinister home intrusions. Unexplained terrors revealed. The Johnsons thought they'd found their perfect home in the picturesque suburb of Oakwood Heights. But it didn't take long for the charm of white picket fences and cheerful neighbors to fray, revealing a terrifying truth lurking behind their dream facade. It started small flickering lights that played a cruel joke by turning on and off as if some unseen hand was toying with them. Sarah and Mike would exchange nervous glances, laughing off the oddities, but it was a laughter tinged with fear. Night after night, sinister whispers echoed through empty rooms, clinging to their sanity like a fog that refused to lift. Shadows danced just out of sight, tugging at the edges of their reality. One balmy evening, they settled on the porch, trying to ignore the oppressive weight of their new life. Suddenly, the house creaked louder than before, a cacophony echoing inside as if the very walls were alive. Then, as if conjured by their dread, came the unmistakable sound of a child's laughter. It chilled Sarah to the bone. Their home was supposed to be a sanctuary, a place to eventually raise children, but why was it filled with sounds of those they didn't have? What had they stumbled into? It was after that night, when Sarah unearthed an old newspaper clipping in the attic, showcasing a little girl with bright eyes missing for over 40 years, just down the street from their new abode. Panic surged through her, visions of their ideal life unraveling in an instant. But when she shared the story with Mike, he brushed it off, mumbling about coincidences and the stress of moving. As reality twisted, so did her grip on it. Days passed, and the eerie events spiraled. Alone one night, Mike at work, Sarah heard a lullaby wafting through the darkness, creeping her out more than any horror movie. Heart racing, she called for Mike with a quivering voice, but all she got back was the deafening silence of empty rooms. The lullaby stopped as suddenly as it started, replaced by a sinister stillness. Crawling under her skin with ice-cold fingers, determined to dig deeper, she ventured into the basement one day, her phone casting a weak glow over walls covered in strange symbols, glowing in the dim light. They were promises, a resolve that felt sinister, linking her to the lost girl, to something more than just a haunted house. Conflicted, desperation grew inside her. Was their home not just haunted, but cursed? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With sleep deprivation creeping in, she sought help from their friendly neighbors, a particular family who radiated warmth. But the hospitality felt more like a trap, and as they invited her in, the atmosphere turned suffocating. A creeping dread surfaced. What if they weren't the good neighbors they pretended to be? As the laughter in her house grew more erratic, she felt eyes on her, watching from the dark. As she pieced together the unsettling truths, a flicker, a shadow darted past the window. Heart throbbing, she turned toward the door, aware that what awaited her would unearth horrors not just from her home, but from the very community she tried to trust. The nightmare was far from over. In fact, it was only just beginning. What dark secret did Oakwood Heights conceal? Who or what was watching her? The air hung heavy, thick with an unbearable tension. Sarah's heart pounded like a drum, each beat echoing in the silence that wrapped around her like a suffocating shroud. She stood still, breath held tight, straining to hear any sound outside. The world had become a theater of shadows, and within that darkness, malevolent eyes seemed to be waiting. Something prickled at the back of her mind, a sensation that sent icy fingers running down her spine. Forgetting the friendly facade of their neighbors, she took a shaky step toward the door, her instincts screaming at her to flee. But the thought of whatever might wait outside only deepened her belief that she was trapped. The laughter, the unsettling, taunting laughter seeped through the walls again. It no longer felt innocent. It wrapped around her, twisting memories of playfulness into something disturbing. She shook her head, trying to banish thoughts of the little girl from the attic. How could a mere newspaper clipping unearth such wickedness? Yet, that girl, lost in time, felt more real than anything at that moment. Suddenly, her phone buzzed in her pocket, breaking the tension like glass shattering. Sarah jumped, fumbling to retrieve it. A message from Mike flashed across the screen, "Just getting off work. Everything okay?" A million thoughts raced through her mind. Should she tell him? What if he didn't believe her? No, she couldn't let him worry. Instead of typing her fears, she forced her fingers to reply with a cheerful tone, "Yes. Just settling in." But the lie tasted bitter in her mouth. She approached the window, her heart thudding louder with every step. The street beyond was deserted, yet the feeling of being watched was palpable. Goosebumps prickled across her skin. She could almost feel the weight of a gaze, hot and penetrating. There it was again. A flicker of movement next door. Sarah squinted, trying to make out anything in the darkness. Nothing. Just shadows shifting in the moonlight. Before she could turn away, the flickering light from the lamp on the porch briefly drew her attention. It flickered again once, twice, then finally steadied. An electric hum filled the air, vibrating through the wooden floorboards. In that moment, she knew she had to confront her fears. There were things hidden in this ghostly little community, tucked away behind closed doors. As if drawn by a force she couldn't understand, she opened her front door and stepped out, her breath hitching in her throat. But the instant she reached the porch, the night swallowed her whole. "Sarah!" came a booming voice from the shadows. She whipped around, startled. It was the neighbor, Mr. Peterson, standing just beyond the fence. His eyes glimmered curiously in the dark. "Everything all right? You shouldn't be out here alone." She pursed her lips, the teeth of anxiety digging in. You shouldn't be outside at night." "Not with what's been happening around here," he said, his voice low and urgent. "What do you mean?" A tremor hitched in her voice. But before Mr. Peterson could answer, a child's laughter rang out again, piercing the stillness like a knife. It echoed, reverberating across the neighborhood. A cold sweat coated her palms. The familiar laughter that once chilled her now layered with something darker, like a warning. "What's happening?" she whispered, her eyes darting toward the sound. "Stay inside," he urged, stepping closer, his posture tightening as a sense of urgency crackled in the air. "Why?" Her eyes locked onto his, desperate for clarity, desperate for escape. "Because sometimes some houses don't let you leave." The words hung in the air, a noose tightening around her conscience. In that moment, every flickering light, every whisper in the dark congealed into a singular realization: something was hunting her. And it was waiting. In the distance, the laughter grew louder, wrapping around her with an unfurling promise of despair. What was it that lurked in the shadows of Oakwood Heights? And would she uncover the truth before it claimed her too? Sarah's heart thudded violently against her chest, drowning out the laughter that echoed through the night. The air thickened, pressing in on her like a vice. She could feel Mr. Peterson's eyes on her, assessing, judging. Taking a step back, she wiped her clammy palms against her jeans, trying to regain control. "What do you know?" she demanded, her voice quaking despite her effort to sound brave. He hesitated, his gaze flicking from her to the house behind them, as if afraid of being overheard. "Just rumors. Stories from the old-timers." His whisper barely rose above a breath. "Some families moved in and just disappeared." A cold chill rippled through her, like icy fingers trailing down her spine. "Disappeared?" "Yes. No one talks about it, but they say if you hear that laugh it means you're next." His voice trembled, the urgency in his eyes sharpening her fear. Was he playing a trick? Challenging her sanity? The night laughed at her, and for a fleeting moment, doubt seeped in. Maybe she was losing her grip, the laughter corrupting her thoughts, twisting her into something unrecognizable. Her stomach turned, the dread coiling deeper and tighter. "Just go inside," Mr. Peterson pressed, glancing around nervously. "Please. But she couldn't. The curiosity burned brighter than her fear. With each passing second, the laughter echoed louder, drowning any rational thought like waves crashing on the shore. Then she looked toward the tall, looming trees that bordered her yard. A soft rustle broke the stillness, shadows darting beneath the branches, merging into the darkness. Her breath caught, something moved there, a silhouette creeping closer. "Did you see that?" She turned to Mr. Peterson, her voice barely a whisper. He didn't reply, his face paling as he watched something shift in the darkness. "Mr. Peterson, get inside!" he shouted, panic erupting, his eyes wide with terror. Before she could react, he lunged toward her, but something stopped him in his tracks. A sudden, unnatural silence blanketed them, swallowing all sound. It was as if the world held its breath, waiting. The laughter retreated and merged into the night, and for a heartbeat, it felt like time froze. She could see it, the outline of a child standing at the edge of the trees, backlit by what little moonlight pierced the clouds. "Help me!" The child's voice rang out, sweet and sorrowful. "Sarah!" Mr. Peterson shouted, his arm outstretched. "What?" she gasped, torn between fear and the overwhelming urge to save. "Who was this child? I need to go home." The little girl spun towards them, her face shadowed, the features obscured yet plastered with desperate hope. "Please, I can't stay here." And just like that, the weight of fear collapsed into dread. Sarah took a step forward against the dread creeping in. Her heart raced, she could feel it pounding everywhere, her hands, her chest, the world spinning around her. The figure in the trees shifted, the air filling with sinister laughter again. It twisted the little girl's plea into a wicked mockery, reverberating through the silence, sending shivers rippling through her very core. "Run!" Mr. Peterson's voice cut through, pulling her back. "Don't look back." She inhaled but found no breath. All she could manage was a frantic step backward, pulse racing, as the shadows shimmered before her eyes. But the moment gripped her, seizing her will. She couldn't turn away. What had become of the girl? Who was haunting Oakwood Heights? "Sarah, please!" Beyond the trees, the laughter rang again, more sinister than before, vying for her attention, and those deep-set shadows seemed to writhe, eager to consume her. With a final glance at Mr. Peterson, she felt the pull of the darkness like invisible hands grasping at her, urging her toward the laughter. What did it want with her? There was no turning back now, not when she felt the connection, the sickness deep within her, drawing her closer. Would she be the next whispered story of Oakwood Heights? The darkness roared, and Sarah stepped forward into it, unsure if she was escaping or falling deeper into despair. Behind her, the laughter echoed once more, leaving her to wonder, was she hunting it, or was it hunting her? The shadows enveloped Sarah like a shroud, thick and suffocating. She could barely see the little girl through the dim glow of moonlight. But that pleading voice cut through her uncertainty, igniting a flame of both fear and curiosity. She moved closer, almost entranced, aware of Mr. Peterson shouting behind her, but the laughter thickened, weaving its way into her thoughts, drowning out reason. "Don't do it, Sarah," he pleaded. "It's a trick." Yet the child's eyes, void of innocence but full of sorrow, spoke to her in a language she couldn't resist. "Please. I can't stay here." Her words hung in the air, weaving a spell that gripped Sarah's heart. Without thinking, Sarah took another step into the forest, branches snapping beneath her feet. Intense fear clamored for her attention, but the magnetic pull of the child was stronger. She reached a trembling hand toward the girl, who seemed to sway like a ghost caught in the breeze. Suddenly, that laughter surged again, more mocking, swirling around them. "You're too late." "Step forward, Sarah." The voice was no longer just an echo, it was alive, teasing, wrapping around her mind. The girl's form flickered, wavering like a flame on the verge of extinguishing. "Help me, Sarah." But the tone shifted. It transformed into a desperate shriek, one that reverberated inside her chest, pulling at her insides. The laughter echoed, a phantasmagoria of sinister joy, mingling with the girl's plea. No. Mr. Peterson's voice sliced through the chaos like a broken record. Get away from her. Panic flickered within Sarah. She took a shaky step back, but the child's face twisted in desperation. You have to listen. You don't understand. The surroundings tensed, the trees closing in as if they were mere sentinels to a dreadful truth. Sarah could feel the air shift, growing sharp and electric. Every instinct warned her to flee, but the urge to uncover the truth held her fast. Closer, she urged herself, just a little closer. Suddenly, darkness erupted from the trees, a wave of shadows that thrashed like angry serpents. They grasped at her, drawing her in, whispering promises of forgotten dreams and hidden secrets. She stumbled, caught in a struggle between the urge to retreat and the curiosity gnawing at her core. In that moment of hesitation, the girl transformed. Her face morphed, twisted into something monstrous. The haunting laughter crescendoed, reverberating through Sarah's bones. Join us. In the darkness, it cooed, the little girl's voice now a sinister symphony. You'll never leave Oakwood Heights. You'll be one of us. Sarah's heart raced. No. She wheeled around, eyes wide, searching for a way back. But the shadows lunged forward, merging with the ghastly grin of the girl. Don't listen. Mr. Peterson shouted. You can't trust it. She turned to him, fear spilling out of her veins. What do I do? Run to the light. Trust your instincts. The tension snapped as adrenaline surged through her. Breathing hard, she pushed off the ground, sprinting back through the chaos, ground shifting beneath her feet. The shadows hissed behind her, tantalizing whispers clawing at the edge of her sanity. Every step felt like moving through concrete. The laughter grew frantic, chasing her until it struck her with a paralyzing chill. Could she escape? Or was she destined to become another piece of the darkness? As she broke free from the trees, breathless and trembling, she spotted a flicker of light in the distance. Hope surged within her. She bolted toward it, feeling the shadows recede. But as she neared the house, a chilling realization settled in her gut. Turning back, she felt the weight of countless eyes watching her. The laughter faded into the night, but it lingered, steeping into her mind like a haunting melody. What lay in the shadows of Oakwood Heights? What darkness craved her? In her heart lingered a nagging itch, a worry that the shadows wouldn't let her go so easily. No longer was she just a girl. She was marked, entwined in a sinister dance with something far older than herself. But she knew she had to find answers. No matter the cost. Would she uncover the truth that awaited her, or would it consume her whole? Her legs felt like lead, heavy and dragging, as Sarah stumbled toward the house. The flickering light beckoned her, a beacon amidst the consuming dread. Each step sent a sharp twinge through her system, but the pulse of survival pushed her forward. She glanced back one last time, her heart roaring in her ears. The laughter had dulled, but not faded. Faint echoes ricocheted off the trees, mercilessly teasing her mind. Join us, the whisper hung in the air, wrapping around her throat like a noose. Sarah. Mr. Peterson's voice shot through the darkness, laced with urgency. Get to the house. Now. She barked a tight nod and sprinted for the light. As she closed the distance, a feeling of both relief and terror coiled around her. The door of the house loomed before her like a gaping mouth. It felt like both an escape and a trap. With one final push, she burst through the door, slamming it behind her. Gasping for breath, she leaned against it, her heart trembling wildly, hoping the carved wood would shield her from the horror outside. Inside, the air was damp and stale, overwhelmed by the scent of mildew and despair. Shadows pooled in the corners, twisting and moving against the pale walls. And yet, in that dimness, she felt a flicker of safety. Did you see her? Mr. Peterson's voice trembled as he leaned against the wall, struggling to catch his breath. Did you see what she became? I don't know, Sarah stammered, her voice shaking. She was a little girl. Then it turned into not a girl, not anymore. His eyes were wide, wild. It seduces you with innocence, Sarah. That thing is older than this town, it feeds on your fears and desires. Then we have to leave. We can't stay here. An icy grip of panic twisted her stomach. What if it finds us again? What if no? He interrupted, his voice rising sharply. We can't just run. This place has secrets. We'll need to uncover the truth. But what if the truth is worse than what we just faced? A shiver ran through her. The image of the girl's monstrous grin flashed behind her eyelids, blinding her with fear. Sometimes, facing the dark is the only way to survive. Mr. Peterson's voice softened. The spirits of Oakwood Heights are tied to this house. We need to understand why, and maybe we can find a way to break free. Against her better judgment, Sarah nodded. Deep down, she knew running would lead back to that dreadful darkness. We need to find the basement, he said, urgency lining his features. I think there's something down there, something connected to what we just saw. Basement? Are you crazy? What if it's waiting for us? Panic clawed at her throat. It's the only way. His eyes locked onto hers, firm and determined. You either want to know or stay trapped in fear. With each passing moment, shadows danced closer, inching toward her like the fingers of a predator. She swallowed hard, the weight of dread mixing with a fierce determination. All right, she said quietly, steeling herself. Let us do this. They moved cautiously through the narrow hallway, walls lined with photos, a grotesque gallery of smiles that felt like dark omens. The house creaked and groaned underfoot, as if alive and aware. As they reached the basement door, the air became heavier, like walking through molasses. Mr. Peterson hesitated. Are you ready? He whispered. No. The word tore from her lips, but she placed her hand on the doorknob anyway. The surface was cold, sending a jolt through her arm. She looked up at him, terror brewing in her stomach. Let us do it. With a deep breath, she twisted the knob and flung the door open. A gust of musty air rushed out, carrying with it a chorus of whispers. The darkness below was all-consuming, thick as fog. After you, Mr. Peterson urged, his voice barely breaking the silence. Heart hammering, Sarah stepped into the abyss. Whatever awaited her there pushed her forward, deeper into the shadows. What secrets lay beneath? What horrors were buried in the dark? The whispers echoed, drowning her thoughts, pulling her deeper into a chilling embrace. And for a split second, she couldn't shake. The feeling that something was waiting for her there, something eager to greet her with open arms. What awaited them in the dark? Would they find the truth, or would it consume them whole? The basement stairs creaked ominously under Sarah's feet, each step a low groan that echoed through the suffocating darkness. Mr. Peterson followed, his breath heavy and labored, the faint light from above fading away like the last rays of the sun before a storm. Shadows writhed and twisted in the corners, shifting as if they were sentient beings, mocking her as she descended further into the damp pit. With each step, the choking smell of damp earth and decay thickened. Goosebumps pricked at her skin as the whispers grew louder, almost intelligible. They tinged her senses, drawing her deeper, draping a veil of panic over her thoughts. Don't listen, a voice echoed, its pitch climbing into a shrill crescendo. What did it say? Mr. Peterson's voice trembled, close behind her. I don't know, Sarah stammered, her instinct screaming for her to turn back. But retreat was not an option. She could feel that unyielding presence, that insatiable hunger for fear, lurking in the darkness. The stairwell ended abruptly, plunging them into an inky void. Sarah squinted, trying to find something, anything to tether her to reality. Above her head, a single bulb flickered ominously, revealing just enough of the room to stoke her imagination. Boxes stacked high, covered in layers of dust, loomed like tombstones marking the resting place of forgotten memories. Mr. Peterson stepped up beside her, his eyes gleaming with a mix of fear and grim determination. "We need to find whatever is down here." "Why?" She could barely whisper, her throat dry. "What if it doesn't want us to know?" The deeper she went, the more it felt like falling into a ravenous abyss, a place where reason melted away, replaced by primal fear. "It's our only chance at survival," he insisted, inching toward a corner filled with old furniture draped under white sheets. And then a sound broke the suffocating silence. A soft, childlike giggle floated through the air, chilling Sarah to her core. The light flickered violently, shadows pinching together as if something was about to materialize before them. "Did you hear that?" Her heart raced, the previous echoes of that girl's laughter replaying in her mind, terrifyingly familiar. "Let us keep moving," he urged, pushing forward. As they neared the mound of sheets, Sarah's hands trembled as she reached out to pull one aside. The fabric felt coarse and cold against her fingers. Drawing it back, she revealed an old rocking chair, its paint chipped and peeling, rocking gently though the air was still. What is this?" Sarah whispered, the giggle ringing in her ears again, louder, almost happy. Before she could answer, the bulb flickered one last time before going completely dark. Fear enveloped them, a heavy blanket of despair that wrapped around Sarah's lungs, making it hard to breathe. Mr. Peterson's voice was barely a murmur, and she could hear the panic creeping in. What do we do?" She stuttered, gripping the edge of the chair as if it were a lifeline in the vast emptiness. Then she felt a cold presence brushing against her, a sensation like icy fingers crawling up her spine. It hovered like vapors, mingling with her breath, pulling her into its frigid grasp. "Join us," it whispered clearly now, laced with malice. A scream bubbled beneath her throat. She turned to Mr. Peterson, who had gone pale, his eyes wide and bewildered. At that moment, the darkness surged forward, enveloping everything in an abyss of panic. Shadows morphed into shapes, twisting grotesquely, and as the laughter swelled, Sarah realized with dread that she wasn't alone anymore. Then, the vision struck her like a lightning bolt, a flash of darkness swirling in the mist, faces contorted in laughter, eyes glimmering with a sinister light. They were not mere whispers, they were a gathering, a congregation of lost souls. "Get out!" Mr. Peterson yelled, but the words felt drowned in the cacophony of madness surrounding them. Their shadows lunged, reaching for her like the tendrils of a nightmare. Desperately, Sarah fought to regain control, her instinct screaming to break free. But the pull was relentless. As the dark figures surged, she felt herself slipping, pulled into that fraying edge of reality, and then, just as quickly, the laughter stopped, silence reclaimed the air, thick yet charged, as dread warred with the uncertainty of what had just transpired. Sarah's eyes darted around the room, searching for something, anything to explain the chilling moment. But something deep down told her the real horror was about to begin. "Where are they?" She breathed, the question escaping before she could stop it, her heart pounding with urgency, and in the oppressive stillness, an all-too-familiar laughter echoed once more, a haunting reminder that she was still very much a player in their dark game. What was waiting to be unveiled in this dark purgatory? Would they succeed in their quest, or had they already sealed their fates? The silence that followed the laughter felt heavier than before, pressing down on Sarah like an invisible weight. She could almost taste the dread, metallic and bitter. The shadows danced around her, but it was the whispers, the insistent murmurs surrounding them that sent shivers rattling through her bones. They were no longer fading into the background, they were a cacophony of haunted pleas and laughter, a symphony of madness. "Sarah, we need to move," Mr. Peterson urged, pulling her elbow with an urgency that snapped her from her stupor. But just as they turned to flee, icy fingers gripped Sarah's ankle. Heart leaping to her throat, she yanked her leg free and stumbled back, eyes wide in terror. A dark figure flickered into existence before her, features obscured, but its presence was unmistakably malevolent. "Join us," it hissed, the voice dripping with malice, echoing through the gloom like a twisted lullaby. The world around her spun, shadows swirling chaotically. Panic surged in her chest, pounding against her ribcage, and she pressed her palms against her ears, desperate to block out the laughter, the chilling whispers. "Don't be afraid," Mr. Peterson urged, his own voice quivering. "We can't let it take us." "Take us?" She gasped, her words barely audible amidst the oppressive atmosphere. "What do you mean?" "Just trust me," he said, gripping her arm tighter. "We have to get to the other side of the basement. I think I saw something there, something that might explain all of this." Sarah glanced toward the far wall, where shadows seemed to pulse, beckoning them closer. The rocking chair still swayed as if kept in motion by unseen hands, its eerie creaking harmonizing with the whispers wrapping around them. "Now!" Mr. Peterson snapped as he pulled her toward the wall. They sprinted together, each step a race against the rising tide of darkness, but the shadows surged forward, coming alive. They reached out, tendrils of darkness grasping at Sarah's coat, tangling around her legs. She gasped and kicked wildly, fear spurring her on. For every step forward, it felt like 100 pulled her back. A deep laugh reverberated, like thunderclaps, splitting the air. "You think you can escape?" It boomed, reverberating in her chest. They barreled toward the wall, and Sarah's heart thudded in overdrive. The room twisted, it was no longer just a basement. It felt like an ancient realm, a prison of lost souls, hungry and waiting. And then, out of the corner of her eye, she spotted a flickering light far ahead, illuminating a doorway marked with strange symbols carved deep into the wood. Hope flared within her for just a moment. "Over there." She pointed, her voice shaking, filled with equal parts dread and determination. "If we can just reach it," Mr. Peterson murmured, his face a mask of resolve. Pushing forward, they fought through the mist and shadows. Whispers clawed at their sanity, and the laughter intensified, mocking their every move. Each step felt heavier, as if the very ground conspired against them, but as they reached the door, something crashed against the wall behind them. The sound sent them both reeling, and in that split second, their grip slackened. The shadows lunged, breaking free from the depths of the darkness. "No!" Sarah screamed, scrambling for the doorway. She shoved against it in desperation, but the darkness had other plans. It seeped into the space around them, filling every crack and crevice. Before she could react, something cold and clammy seized her wrist. The panic ignited in flames within her gut as she felt herself being pulled away. "Don't let it take you!" Mr. Peterson shouted, struggling against the encroaching darkness. The shadows twisted tighter, she could feel the pull, the burn of despair wrapping around her like a shroud. "Fight it, Sarah! Don't let them win!" Just as she felt her strength waning, the flickering light from the door burst forth, illuminating the room in an otherworldly glow. In that moment of clarity, she caught a glimpse of their captors' twisted faces, lost spirits trapped in torment, but one face stood out, a girl with hollow eyes and a sorrowful grin that twisted the essence of innocence. "You'll stay with us forever," she whispered, voice sweet yet laced with despair. As the darkness clawed at her like 1,000 frenzied hands, Sarah's instincts kicked in. With a primal scream, she ripped her wrist free. She lunged for the door, heart pounding, skin prickling with terror. Would they reach the safety of that light? Or would they become yet another tale lost to the darkness? And then, with one last desperate push, Sarah turned to face the shadows one final time, determined to fight for her freedom. But before she could make sense of it all, the ground split beneath her, and an echoing laughter seeped through the cracks, a promise that this nightmare was far from over. The moment Sarah lunged toward the doorway, a blast of shadow slammed against her, the coldness snaking up her arm and wrapping around her throat. Mr. Peterson was shouting, but his voice was drowned out by the laughter, that maddening, echoing laughter that filled every corner of the basement. She could barely breathe, the darkness clawing at her, scratching and tearing, like a beast intent on claiming its prey. "Sarah, jump!" he yelled, desperation etched in his face, but could she really trust him? In that fleeting instant, doubt flickered in her mind. What if he was just another trick of the shadows? But an overwhelming surge of instinct urged her forward. Out of the corner of her eye, the swirling shadows seemed to coalesce into human forms, each face a contorted mask of agony and hunger. One reached out, fingers elongated, sharp like twisted branches, grasping desperately as if desperate to cling to the living. With all her might, Sarah dove for the door, screaming as she felt something sharp graze her shoulder. It tore through the fabric, a stinging pain blazing as she squeezed her eyes shut. She could feel the flickering light enveloping her, pulling at her, promising safety. "Don't stop. Keep running," Mr. Peterson urged, his voice a lifeline amidst the chaos. She landed raggedly, arms outstretched, and felt the warmth of the light. But it was the slightest touch of that warmth against her skin that sparked another thought. Were they meant to cross over, or were they just to be absorbed by the light, another pair of lost souls? The shadows hesitated, dark tendrils retracting, momentarily blocked by the brilliance radiating from the doorway. The hollow-eyed girl stood back, the look of grief and malice mixing so fiercely it left Sarah breathless. "You may escape now, but the darker whispers will always find you." Before Sarah could register the words, Mr. Peterson yanked her up, pulling her towards the glowing portal. The laughter and whispers grew fainter as they stumbled through. They emerged into a dimly lit hallway, no longer bound in the suffocating basement. The air was thick, almost tangible, and the darkness skittered away, but it still felt alive, lurking just out of sight. The door behind them slammed shut with a bone-rattling force, echoing through the hall like a final warning. "What was that?" Sarah gasped, trying to catch her breath, but Mr. Peterson's eyes were suddenly filled with dread, scanning the hallway as if expecting something to jump out. "That's only the beginning," he replied, his voice a whisper. "We thought we were free. But those shadows, they don't just go away." Stepping further into the corridor, the walls seemed to sway, almost breathing with a life of their own. Fleeting images whispered behind them, shadows caught in the periphery, always dancing just out of reach, teasing her sanity. They stumbled into a larger room, filled with ominous portraits that followed their every move, eyes glinting maliciously. A faint sound echoed a child's laughter, sweet yet laced with something sinister. "Sarah!" Mr. Peterson hissed, his face pale. "We need to find a way out, now. Before they find us again." But before they could make another move, a voice curled around them, soft yet sharp. "You can't leave yet, not until you understand the truth." The air grew thick, electricity pulsing between them. Faces in the paintings looked eager, mouths opening in a silent scream, as a figure stepped forward, a woman draped in shadows, her face obscured but her intent unmistakable. Stay or unleash a fate worse than darkness. What truth loomed ahead? And would they be able to escape this second nightmare, or had they only opened another door to terror? Sarah could feel her heart hammering in her chest, the echo of Mr. Peterson's urgency drowning in the fear that pulsed through her veins. The woman in the shadows was a pull, a dark gravity that seemed to leech her strength. "What truth?" she managed to stammer, eyes darting, searching for escape. "Do you understand where you are?" The woman's voice dripped with sweet malice. "You're in the Wraith's domain. Each painting holds a story, each story a soul trapped here, yearning for the living. And the shadows? They are mere echoes of what should not be disturbed." A chill crawled up Sarah's spine. She turned to Mr. Peterson, who'd gone pale as a ghost, his eyes fixed on the paintings. They're not just images," he whispered, as if trying to convince himself. "They are echoes of pain." Before Sarah could process his words, the child's laughter rang out again, echoing on the edges of her sanity. It was hollow, playful yet sinister, like a melody twisted into something monstrous. She felt a pull, the laughter beckoning her, and she stepped back instinctively, bumping into Mr. Peterson. "Don't look at them, Sarah." He grabbed her shoulder, yanking her back. "We need to move." But as they turned to flee, the woman laughed, her voice weaving through the air like poison. "You can't escape the truth. The shadows will always hunt what belongs to them." The portraits shifted, faces twisting in silent agony as they gazed at Sarah, their painted mouths stretching in unnatural ways. Desperation clawed at her throat as she fought the urge to scream. She caught a glance at a child's face in one portrait. It was a reflection of innocence now drowned in despair. The child's eyes bored deep into her own. "Help us," the silent plea echoed in her mind. "Sarah, focus. We need to go." Mr. Peterson pulled her along, but the air thickened around them, each step felt heavier. The sounds of their hurried breathing faded, consumed by a rising cacophony of whispers that blended into a sinister symphony. Suddenly, the walls began to pulse, vibrating with urgency, as shadows bled from the corners, swirling like a dark storm. A sudden crash echoed behind them, and a massive shadow tore through the paintings, reaching Run. Mr. Peterson bellowed. They darted down the next corridor, propelled by primal fear. Behind them, the laughter intensified, chillingly joyous. The shadows seemed to pick up speed, and Sarah's mind raced. What if they were trapped forever in this place? What was the truth they needed to understand? "Where do we go?" she shouted, panic flooding her voice as she glanced back to see the dark tendrils growing closer, ready to snatch them back into the nightmarish void. "There." Mr. Peterson pointed to a door at the end of the corridor, glowing faintly. But it was surrounded by a barrier of shadows, twisting and writhing like snake-like limbs. "We have to break through." Just then, a child's giggle zipped past her. It felt like an icy blade in her chest. "Trust them," echoed a voice in her mind, and she faltered, emotions churning within her. As they reached the door, a shadow lunged from the side, dark claws reaching for them. In that moment, Sarah had to choose: keep running and face the unknown horrors, or give in to the lure of the shadows and find out what they wanted to share. Time froze at a mar. Peterson's gaze was locked on her. "Sarah, we can't let it take us. Choose now." Would she turn her back on the shadows, or would she yield, risk everything for the faint promise of understanding? "Do it!" Mr. Peterson shouted as the shadows roared, and she made her choice. But would it lead them into salvation, or deeper into the darkness that stalked them from all sides? The moment Sarah made her choice, an unearthly roar erupted from the shadows, reverberating through the hallway like thunder. She felt Mr. Peterson's grip tighten around her wrists as if anchoring her to reality. The shadows surged toward them, a tsunami of despair and dread threatening to consume them whole. "Trust me," she shouted over the chaos, finding her voice amidst the cacophony. She wasn't entirely sure what that meant but felt an instinct deep within her guiding the way. With every ounce of her strength, she tore free from the cocoon of darkness attempting to close around them, bolting for the glowing door. As they sprinted forward, the air thick with despair and whispers, the door loomed closer. Its luminescence shimmered like a lighthouse guiding lost ships home. But the shadows writhed and clawed, black tendrils reaching out, latching onto Sarah's legs, dragging her back into the cold clutches of the darkness. She stumbled, heart racing, fear rising in her chest, but the thought of being consumed by those whispers fueled her spirit. "Now!" Mr. Peterson roared, his voice slicing through the fog of terror, propelling her forward. She fought against the pull, flinging herself toward the door, the rasping whispers growing more frantic around them. "Don't let them take you." With a desperate lunge, Sarah reached for the doorknob. The cold metal felt alive beneath her fingers, an electric jolt surged through her. But in that instant, the shadows crashed against her from behind, nearly pinning her down beneath their weight. Then, just as despair began to seep into her resolve, she heard it, the laughter. A child's giggle mingling with the whispers, echoing with innocence tempered in malice. It filled her with a fierce determination and swirled in her mind, urging her to act. It felt like a promise that echoed along the edges of her consciousness, igniting hope amidst the darkness. "Together!" she shouted, her voice unwavering. "On 3. 1. 2. The shadows hesitated for just one heartbeat, a moment of silence amidst the chaos. 3. With all her might, she twisted the knob and flung the door open, the brilliance spilling into the dark as they lunged inside. The moment they crossed the threshold, an explosion of light erupted, blinding and engulfing them in warmth. The shadows screamed as if exposed to sunlight rushing back, clawing at the edges of the doorway, desperate to reclaim their prey. "Hold on!" Mr. Peterson yelled, pulling Sarah close as they tumbled through the portal and into a world unfamiliar yet oddly invigorating. They landed on soft grass that felt welcoming, the air fresh and crisp. Panting and breathless, they scrambled to their feet, glancing back. The door slammed shut, sealing the shadows inside, but the whispers faded slowly to a haunting, mournful echo, lingering like a dark cloud over their shoulders. "Are we?" Sarah gasped, eyes wide, taking in their surroundings. They stood in a small clearing bordered by tall trees, their leaves rustling gently in the breeze. Sunlight spilled through, crafting a beautiful scene that felt alien compared to the suffocating darkness they had escaped. "Are we free?" Mr. Peterson's expression hardened as he glanced around. I don't know. They were too strong. That was not what they wanted," he continued, a tremor in his voice. "That darkness. It lured us with promises of understanding because it thrives on our curiosity. But we outsmarted it, for now." The reality of their escape began to settle in. But heavy anxiety weighed on Sarah's heart, urging her to seek the truth. But the little girl, what happened to her? Mr. Peterson's gaze turned intent, his brow furrowing. "If we follow the shadows, see their true nature, maybe we can uncover their story. A way to help those trapped." A hint of uncertainty flickered in his eyes. "But we must be careful, curiosity has its consequences." Nodding resolutely, Sarah tightened her grip. They had faced the darkness together, woven in that chilling laughter, and it had only made them stronger. "Then let us do this. Let us find a way to break the curse of Oakwood Heights." As they set off, the sun illuminating their path, Sarah felt the lingering whispers settle behind her, a chilling reminder of what lurked in the shadows, waiting, watching. Yet now, armed with newfound determination and courage, they marched into the wild woods. For together, they sought not just answers, but the redemption of lost souls, carving light into the darkest corners of the world. Behind them, the fading echoes whispered faintly, entwined in a promise of forgotten laughter. "Join us," but Sarah was ready to face the truths beyond, forging ahead into the unknown. And with that, the journey became more than survival. It was hope, illuminating a path not just to freedom, but to justice. The light ahead felt bright, like the dawn breaking after a long, dark night. They emerged into a new chapter, with shadows still lurking, but hearts filled with purpose. No longer captive, but alive with the need to rewrite the stories of those echoing cries and laughter, and unearth the shadows that had haunted Oakwood Heights for far too long. Now, the real fight began, depths to explore, mysteries to unravel, and souls to save. United, they could shine a light where darkness had reigned. Subscribe immediately to our channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Flood the comment section with your reactions and theories about this conclusion, and wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear this ending. True fans know that supporting the channel elevates the next chilling narratives we present.